Welcome back, everyone, to the Placement Loop podcast. I'm your host, Brian. And for those of you joining us for the first time, we talk about business entrepreneurship journey. We talk about struggles within the staffing, recruiting, and consulting space and how we are solving it these days. And we talk about market insights of how consulting and staffing is and how we planning on foreseeing the future. Now, I have a wonderful guest here with me today. So excited to have him on the podcast as well as share his specific journey, Mr. Aaron.
Yes, Brian, that is how to pronounce my name.
Boom, yeah.
Aaron Ajayi. Good
Perfect,
job.
perfect. Excellent, excellent. Well, welcome aboard, sir. Thanks for being on the podcast itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Tell us a little bit more so of your background, where you came and where you came about to founding Search Station.
By the way, thank you for having me, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Nigeria, born in England, but raised in Nigeria. I moved to the US in 2016, but before I moved to the US, I had already worked for, many recruiting agencies back in Africa. And I did a lot of work across major industries, oil and gas, engineering, accounting. And then when the move to the US came, I decided to stick with what I know, which is recruiting. And I was able to get my first job in recruiting with a company called AMN Healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
AMN is the largest, number
Huge.
one healthcare recruiting agency in the US.
Yep.
And I worked for them for about 8 years. So in total, I come with about 15 to 20 years of recruiting experience, but 8 years of healthcare specific recruiting experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what was so now you the owner of Search Station, what was your point of no return into becoming an entrepreneur?
So entrepreneurship is something that has always been, around me. My mom was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. So I just grew up knowing that one day I will be an entrepreneur. Now, my parents never really, they wanted us to have a great education, but they would always tell us that, education can take you this far, but being an entrepreneur can take you to where you really want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been there, been in my head, in my thoughts to be an entrepreneur. And at some point when I moved to the US, I saw how big the industry was. And I thought to myself, if I could learn from the biggest player in the industry, that would give me the foundation that I need to actually get into the market and compete. The turning point was my first day at AMN. I walked into the room, into the office, and in fact, from the parking lot, there were like Corvettes and Ferraris in the parking lot, and I was like, wow, these guys are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
I I need to be on this, on this journey with them. So, I would say that was the turning point, just walking into the office thinking, recruiting as an industry is not doesn't get the recognition it deserves.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone talks about, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to work in IT, but you don't see anyone saying, I want to be a recruiter. So if you can see an establishment as big as AMN and all they do is recruiting and they make so much money, they're a Fortune 500 company,
Yeah.
then that should inspire you. And that's what inspired me, to be honest, Brian.
Yep. Yeah. Recruiting, it's one of those things to where we don't really get enough credit for, right? We're mercenaries essentially, right? In a sense, we go and we find the right talent specifically for the role, and we get paid for it. Usually it's a simple, quick transaction, right? Sometimes like for extended periods of time over a contract, but it's essentially what it is. It's one of those things to where you appreciate it once you're actually in the trenches.
Absolutely.
And you also appreciate it once you've already worked with a recruiter that has delivered for you.
Absolutely.
Right? Because like both sides of the coin, right? Being a client, understand that, okay, hiring a recruiter, saving a lot of time, right? And potentially you're saving money because I don't have to hire anyone that's full time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
for these specific roles. And these people, like recruiters, have more skin in the game. We actually make the money from actually delivering a specific candidate for that role, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
for a good amount of folks, it's hard to go solo recruiting, right? Because a lot of folks understand of really how to just recruit. So to go out there, putting yourself out there, having conversations, getting your name out there, setting up meetings with clients and potential managers, that's where um, if you have that in place as a solo recruiter, you end up making a whole ton of money.
Absolutely.
Whole ton of money. Because I used to also work at a large business, right?
You
Two
said
large
so.
businesses.
Yes.
And I wasn't doing the recruiting. I only did recruiting for 6 months, and then they put me strictly into business development and sales
Mm-hmm.
for the last 4 years. And what I realize is that we're making companies a lot of money.
We are.
Yeah,
We
like, yeah,
are.
you realize me as like a BD person is like bringing in the contracts, and each contracts or new client has like 4 or 5 different roles, right? And essentially, we pay for the back end stuff. We pay for the office, right? There's so
Yes.
many different cuts that we have to give to the companies. That's where it ends up being a no-brainer to really just be on your own sometimes, right? And take
So
that leap.
the industry standard is 15% on the annual salary of
Mm-hmm.
that placement, right?
Yep, yep.
So, say, for example, in my industry, healthcare, an average physician would make about 250,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
15% of that is what you're bringing into the company as revenue,
Yep, yep, yep,
right? But
yep.
guess how much goes to the recruiter?
Yeah. And even
How?
counting for you paying their salary, that still doesn't matter. That's
Yes.
peanuts. The
Yeah,
salary of a recruiter is peanuts
absolutely.
compared to the overall.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And you're talking about one recruiter was making three, four, five placements per month or per quarter.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of revenue. Now,
Hmm.
I do know that for a lot of recruiters, it is not easy to set up your own shop, to set up
Yeah.
your own business.
Hmm.
There's a lot that goes into it. So, I would say that we recruiters and business development executives, we do make a lot of money for, these companies or for our employers, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur. But I do believe the percentage on commission has to go up.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I kind of use this for restaurants as well because I used to work
Okay.
in restaurants for 15 years. Restaurants and recruiting for a lot of folks is like a stepping stone job, right?
Mm,
You're going in. A lot of these recruiting companies, even the ones that I worked with, like they're starting to hire graduates in that are in sales and marketing majors, and that's kind of like where the landscape's becoming. It's like new talent, bringing folks in as junior recruiters, and then see if they make it, right? Bulk volume hires, and what happens is that the senior folks, right, the senior folks in those businesses end up having to work on the hardest to fill rec
yeah, the hard to feel.
because they're the experts, right? They should be
Hmm.
working on the hardest to fill, but it's also not
Right.
fair to them as well,
Yeah.
right? You got to throw them a couple of bones. So that's where the markets, a lot of these companies don't really see that sometimes. But this is also where we have a lot of folks trying to become solo recruiters, and it is hard, right? It is hard. A lot of them don't make it, right? A lot of them go back to working W-2.
Yeah. I mean, the pressure is there because, especially in today's economy where just the cost of everything is rising. It is hard to stay, above water as an entrepreneur,
Yep,
especially if you don't come into the business with enough capital. I, as an entrepreneur, I've had the pressure to go back into, a W-2 employment, but I am committed to this. This
yep,
is this is my life stream, my life's goal, and I'm committed to putting everything into it to make sure it works.
yep, yep,
So again, the level of commitment has to be there. There has to be some financial commitment, But also you have to know what you're doing. So like you said, the junior recruiters are given the easier recs and they
Yep.
just hit the phones every day, calling
That's
all
it.
these
Yep.
candidates and trying to fill those roles.
Mm-hmm.
But the senior guys are working on the hard to fields, and they work on
Yep.
hard to fields because they know the industry.
Yep.
They know the game. One
Yep.
call could bring a placement.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yep.
don't have to make 10, 20, 100 calls a
Exactly. Yeah.
day.
One call can make a placement. Exactly.
Yes,
One
yes. So
text.
so the senior recruiters are those that I feel have a better chance of making it as an entrepreneur, as a solo recruiter.
Yep.
But if you're a junior recruiter, you're 1, 2 years into the game, I would say learn, as much as you can.
Yep.
Because I spent 8 years at AMN, and the 8 years that I spent there, it was like going to school. It was like I was in a college degree.
Yep.
I had to
Yep.
learn about healthcare from the bottom to the top. I had to learn how to have conversations, how to have sales conversations,
Uh-huh.
how to have industry standard conversations,
Yep.
because now you're speaking to healthcare providers and you have to speak their language.
Mm-hmm.
So so I learned so much in 8 years, and I feel confident now that I can run my own shop. I would encourage anyone to rush into it, but if you can get into it, I feel it's profitable
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
long run.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So you've hit a couple of points there when it comes to being an entrepreneur. You kind of start off with no real confidence what the future's going to be, but
Absolutely.
you're confident in yourself. I think that's the biggest piece, right? You which makes you more committed because you're doing it for yourself, and you're also betting on yourself,
Mm,
right? You're betting a steady paycheck
yeah,
that you're going to succeed and make more than that, right?
absolutely.
That's like the hardest pill to swallow for some folks that are inspired to kind of start on their own. But I would definitely say just do it, right? And I'm pretty sure you would say the
Mm,
same thing, right? Any folks who are listening right
absolutely.
now, just do it. Just do it.
Absolutely. The fear of the unknown is very real. But there was a little quote I saw yesterday. I can't remember who it's from, but it said, "Those that don't risk going far will never know how far to go." If you wanted to walk from here, from Texas to Alabama, you have to take the risk. But
Mm-hmm.
if you never take that risk, you never know how possible it is.
Yep.
So you have to start the journey. You have to take that risk. There are unknowns on the way. There'll be trials, there'll be tribulations, but you have to be committed to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you know, one thing that has helped us is that we have a few mentors that we speak to.
Yep.
I have a few friends who've been entrepreneurs longer than I have, and I speak to them. And every now and then they, come in and give me tips and tricks on what to do. And that has really helped. When I have
Mm-hmm.
a challenge, I go to them and I say, "Hey, this is what I'm facing. This is what I need to do. What should I do? Where should I go? Who should I call?"
Yep.
And they've probably faced that problem before. A-
Mm-hmm.
And and the good thing is there are a lot of mentorship programs out there for entrepreneurs. The government has them. So the SBA has mentorship programs for
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs. There's so many entrepreneurial programs out there. There are
Yep.
actually big establishments will have their internal entrepreneurial program.
Yep.
For example, I know that Lockheed Martin has
Yep.
one.
Mm-hmm.
They have an
Yep.
entrepreneurship program where they mentor you on how to be an entrepreneur. So having a good mentor, especially a mentor who is successful in the business, doesn't have to be your industry. It could be any industry, but a successful entrepreneur, that person can guide you. I have a few of them, and I call them every day.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Mentorship is one of those things where people kind of don't appreciate until it's gone, right?
Hmm.
Because you always have that person, kind of like a dad, right?
Yep.
Or just a person that just knows where you're going and it gives you that advice of where you want to be, even though sometimes it's not the advice you want to hear, right? They have that deeper level of like, you got to do some things that you're not comfortable with or don't want to do,
Hmm.
right? But this is how it's going to get you to point A to point B of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And those are so invaluable of of a resource when it comes to kind of the people that you should know. I feel like the folks that always keep in your circle are folks that are mentors naturally, folks that you essentially have that actually is cheerleading for you, right? Folks that are actually for
Absolutely.
you. I think that's a huge piece when it comes to entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship can get very lonely, right?
Oh yeah.
Right, to where you can't really do some of the stuff that they want to do. But also you don't have enough credit or you don't have enough, say, trust or authority yet
Mhm.
to be able to hang with the big boys, right?
Right.
So the best way to do it is find mentorship. So you already have that relationship established, so they can get you up there. And I feel like that's the only people, right, other than close family, right, is actually rooting for you. Mentors will be the second type of people to keep around always.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Everyone needs a mentor.
Mm,
Even as a recruiter working, on a W-2 type of contract, I believe even within your company, you should have a mentor. While I worked at AMN, I had senior recruiters who were there before me, 10,
yep.
15 years experience, and
Hmm.
I leaned on them. When I had, recruiting questions, I
Yep.
have this objection. How do I overcome this objection?
Yep.
You know, Candidate says, hey, what should I do? And they taught me little tricks, and those tricks are the tricks that I'm now passing on to, our newly employed recruiters. So
Hmm.
everyone needs a mentor.
Yep. 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 Yeah. Pivoting when it comes to the recruiting industry itself, right?
Hmm.
Reviewing how the market is, we know that AI is a commodity essentially at this point,
Right.
right? There's AI everywhere. When someone says AI, what does that really even mean, right? It could mean anything now. It's so broad.
Hmm.
Where do you think AI is helping? Like, what types of AI, is actually providing support to the recruiting and staffing market, and where is it actually missing the point?
Um, I would start with the latter question where it's missing the point. I feel AI is missing a point from a human perspective.
Yeah.
Um, as much as the, engineers and developers and coders can try to make the engine as human as possible,
Hmm.
it still misses that human touch. And recruitment is human resources.
Hmm.
It's in the name, human resources. So
Yeah.
it is a human industry, it is a human field. And I've heard a lot of people say, you know, oh, AI is going to take our jobs as recruiters. Yes, some jobs will be lost, but not all jobs will be lost.
Right.
Recruiting is still going to thrive. Recruiting is still going to be an industry that everyone will want to work in. Now, but that human element is what is missing. And I know they're working on it, but it's hard to replace that human element, that emotional feel, that
Yep.
empathy, you know, that connection.
Yep.
So that is where I think AI is missing it. But when we then get to the former question, which is how is it helping the industry? Oh my God, that is huge. So for example, we are in conversations right now and we're looking into bringing in an AI recruiter.
Hmm.
There are third-party companies out there that are selling these products,
Yep.
but also I'm also speaking to the developer. We have a developer in-house, and we're speaking to the developer, and we're trying to see if we can, have something more bespoke to
Yeah.
our business.
Hmm.
But what we're trying to do is have that AI recruiter make that first touch calls. So, say for example, we're looking for um, a nurse practitioner
Right.
in Oklahoma. What the AI will do is call all the nurse practitioners in Oklahoma and ask them 3 to 4 or 5 questions.
Right.
Hi, Miss Jane. I am Judy, AI recruiter for Search Station.
Yeah.
We have a job in Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma. Are you interested? If she says yes, then they ask another qualifying question.
Right.
Are you board certified? If she
Right.
says yes, Do you have an active license in the state? It
Right.
says yes. Then it
Sir.
says, okay,
Yep.
we'll pass you on to a recruiter. So it does that initial first screening,
Mm-hmm.
which is 3 to 5 pre-qualifying questions.
Yep.
But what that does is the human can only make so many dials in a day.
Yep.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, when I started my journey as a recruiter, I used to make about 120 calls a day. That's a
Yeah.
lot of calls,
That's a lot of calls.
right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But the AI can do that in 30 minutes,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
right? It can make that 120 calls in 30 minutes asking those 5 pre-qualifying questions. What it does for us as a team is it sends us the results, and we know those nurse practitioners in Oklahoma that are interested. And those are the calls we now make. So
Mm-hmm.
we cut our calling time from 100 calls a day to about 25 productive calls a day. That is huge. So that's one way that AI has been helping the industry. Not a lot of agencies have applied this, but I believe that it will soon become commonplace
Yeah.
amongst different industries.
Mm-hmm.
But another way is um, applicant tracking. So back in the days, you could have 2,000 applicants. How do you go through all of them to find out that needle in the haystack,
Mm-hmm.
that that physician, that provider that has that specific license that you're looking for? But with the AI now, you can easily track applicants across different, ATS and CRM systems.
Yep.
So that's a big deal. I also feel like, resume parsing, and those have become basic now. Almost all ATS systems have that,
Yeah.
right? But that's where the technology is going. And the way I'm seeing it, I think there will come a time where robotics and AI would merge, and we'll actually have physical robots making recruiting decisions,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
believe it or not. So you walk into an office and you want to speak to a recruiter and conduct an interview, you will walk into a room and that interview will be conducted by a robot from start to finish.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
that is the future. That is the
Yeah.
future. Um, I mean, even when it comes to just sales, you're trying to make, construct emails to send to candidates, construct emails to send to clients. The AIs help you do that now. I use
Yeah.
Claude, and Claude is fantastic when it comes to crafting emails and crafting, outreach letters.
Yep.
Um, so I feel any agency that's not using AI now is losing out big time, really big time.
Mm-hmm.
AI
So
is so essential to the industry.
yeah, I would agree. And that whole robot aspect, I
Hmm.
think the best way for that to accelerate would be that if every recruiter implemented that to where it's saturated, right? Like it's like
Right.
electric vehicles in a sense, right?
Hmm.
In the very beginning, a lot of people were for it, a lot of people were against it,
Right.
right? Until a lot of people had to hop on the bandwagon. Next thing
Hmm.
you know, it's globally accepted. Like, all right, we're gonna drive EVs now, which there was so much resistance in the first place,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think the biggest piece here, when it regards to AI, is how people understand what each AI does, but also how they understand their own business and where to use AI. Because some people
Right.
just want to just buy everything and not really know how to manage any of it, right? They'll
Right.
buy
Right.
everything and not manage any of it. And next thing you know, they're just like paying for expensive tool stacks that are very powerful, right? They're great, but no one's managing it. And they had to learn everything and they don't have like a proper consultant to help them out with anything like that. So that's where when it comes to AI, folks are struggling a little bit because it's taken them longer in order for AI to be ramped up because you still have to teach it some things specific to your
Absolutely.
business. And
Absolutely.
that's the huge piece is that some people sometimes don't want to teach, right? They just want it to be a plug-in thing. Then they realize it's not a plug-in thing. Now they're upset. Now they're double upset because they spent money on it and it doesn't work. And now they figure out they have to do work in order to make it work, right? So it's like a triple threat when it comes to AI sometimes.
I
So
mean, there are a ton of AI applications out there that, you can buy or you can be coerced into buying
Mm-hmm.
and that have no relevance to your business, to your
Yep.
point. But if you're starting small, you know, funds will be something that is critical to your business.
Yep.
So you have to manage your funds wisely,
Mm-hmm.
and that would kind of dictate your decision making when it comes to what application you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
So for us at Search Station, there's so many applications we can get into.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to be practical. What is practical for us now?
Mm-hmm.
How many applications can we actually afford to use at this time of our growth?
Right.
So I agree with you. Not every application out there should be bought or utilized.
Yeah.
Look within your system, look within your company, look within your industry and see what is the most essential.
Yeah.
What is urgent and
Yeah.
pressing for us
Yeah.
to use,
Right.
you know.
Exactly. 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 And it all just depends on where you're at, even in the entrepreneur journey as well.
Right,
So,
right.
so now when it comes to your own business and where you're at right now with Search Station, what are some of the challenges that you're observing in your own business, and what are you currently doing to solve those challenges or thinking about solving them?
So, our biggest challenge is funding. And the reason I say that is there's so much we can do, but we just don't have access to the funds to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are different programs out there to provide funding.
Right.
Where I'm a little skeptical when it comes to taking business loans.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I feel that is something I will be more comfortable doing when we've scaled to a point where I feel comfortable that we can actually make those repayments without
Mm-hmm.
hurting the business, right?
Yeah.
Um, but we're open to investors,
Yeah.
we're open to partnerships, and we're open to, grants and, those type of seed investments. Because with those type of investments, what we can actually do is employ more hands.
Right.
So, for example, we have two recruiters, one developer who works part-time, and an accountant who works part-time.
Yeah.
And now the developer and the recruiters are outsourced. They're outside of the US.
Right.
And we just had to outsource them because we couldn't afford to pay, what the local market was paying,
Of course.
you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if we had funding, we'll be able to pay, local recruiters to help us find jobs, find candidates.
Right.
And we'll be able to pay local business executive managers to help us find clients.
Right.
So um, funding is huge. For us, like you said, we were talking about applications. There are certain applications that we need at this
Mm-hmm.
time. We do have an ATS system and we
Yeah.
have a CRM system. It's not the greatest, but it's decent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can buy something better. For
Mm-hmm.
example, there's Bullhorn, there's Salesforce. We can buy those, but we
Yeah.
can't afford them right now.
Yeah.
We look at, just operationally, it would be nice to have an office. Now everyone works remote, but it will still be nice to have, a brick and mortar kind of office where people can reach and come to
Yep.
and have meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So funding is essential for us.
Yeah.
I think another challenge where we have right now is just the pace of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So the expectation is, you know, you want to grow, but the pace at which you want to grow, you can't match that pace.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone looks at our business and says, okay, you've been open for a year, I expect that you should be here. Why are you here? We're here because it's just almost unrealistic to get here. For example, finding clients.
Yeah.
It took
Mm-hmm.
us a long time to iron out our business development part.
Mm-hmm.
6 months after opening, we just didn't have clients. We had personal relationships, those were like
Yeah.
soft clients, but
Mm-hmm.
I meant like proper clients where we went out
Yeah.
and won those businesses. Those new clients were a little difficult to find
Mm-hmm.
because they don't know you.
Yeah.
They know the big boys, they know the big companies, your big competitions, but they don't know you. You
Yep.
have no track record, nothing, you know, to show for it.
Yep.
So that you're almost like you're competing against yourself because you want to grow and you're asking yourself, I am 1 year in the industry and I'm supposed to be here, but why am I here?
Right.
So that's one big challenge. I think, like I already mentioned, business development, that's another big thing. Just finding clients, finding candidates. The key to any business is the clients.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
without the clients, you can't do business. So that was difficult for us finding clients. And then I would say self-motivation.
Hmm.
Like we talked earlier, you wake up in the morning and you have to do it all over again,
Yep.
even when you don't see any results.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You
Hmm.
wake up in the morning, no results, but you have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
You have to motivate yourself to do it 5, 6 days a week.
Right.
You know, I work 10, 12 hours sometimes a day, and I just have to keep motivating myself.
Yeah.
But I have a very strong family system and they support me
Yep.
mentally, emotionally, and they say, just keep doing it, keep pushing.
Hmm.
I have friends and mentors, like I said, and everyone
Hmm.
keeps, encouraging me to move on.
Yeah.
But I think that's another challenge, that
Yeah.
self-motivation, that self-drive to wake up every morning and do the same thing over again
Yeah.
without any results
Yeah.
immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the
that's
patience.
tough. Yeah.
The patience is big in entrepreneurship, especially in the
Hmm.
very beginnings. We don't really see any kind of clients coming in or any kind of like positive movement, right? Um, Definitely having that support system, like the families, like having, that's why it's important to keep people around you that root for you
Yep,
and can teach you. I think those are the
absolutely.
two most important. Yeah, you can have some friends, some acquaintances, that's totally fine, right? But the folks that you should keep close to you, and what I mean close is like you can text these people almost at any time of the day, right? And they
Absolutely.
understand you. Our mentors and your support system. I think that's bare basics when it comes to successful entrepreneurship. Because we just going back to the challenge of being lonely. That is a huge challenge. I think you're the first that has mentioned that psychological challenge. A lot of folks mention more so their operational challenge, but
Right.
the psychological aspect is just as important because
It
it
is.
does affect operations,
It
right?
is. It does.
That's a big takeaway right there. So, awesome. Well, final question. I love asking this to everybody. Looking back, if you go back in time right now, right, what would you tell your younger self to get to where you're at now faster?
Um, uh, I would tell my younger self to have learned more about every facet of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned how to be a good recruiter at AMN, but I did not learn how to be a good account manager,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? So, um, that business development piece is missing. So I would tell my younger self to have learned more, spent more time in um, earning calls, spend more time on business development calls, spend more time in other roles of the company that don't
Mm-hmm.
directly affect you
Right.
or that you're not directly responsible for. Because all that knowledge will come to play when you start your entrepreneurial journey. And for me, um, I'm having to learn those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just learn how to be a good recruiter, but learn how to be a good manager, learn how to
Right.
be a good business development executive,
Yep.
learn how to be a better accountant,
Mm-hmm.
learn how to be better in other facets of growing a business.
And they don't really teach you in school either, right? They
No,
don't teach that any of that stuff in
no.
school. They teach you how to satisfy a salary and your work at a job. That's what school
Which
essentially teaches you.
And that is a problem because we all go in just trying to do our job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you want to ever become an entrepreneur, it is not about doing your job.
Yeah.
It's about doing every job. So, for example, as the CEO of SearchStation, I have to manage, I have to think about branding.
Yeah.
I have to think about accounting. I have to
Hmm.
think about sales. I
Yep.
have to think about
Delivery.
candidates,
Yeah. Candidates.
delivery,
Yeah.
everything.
Yep.
So some of these things, for example, social media, it's so difficult for me to manage that because I have so much on my desk.
Yep.
I would say learn as much as you can from every facet of the business
Hmm.
before you decide to come into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. That's so. And I would start with sales. I would say if there's
Absolutely.
any skill in entrepreneurship to start to learn, the first thing to learn would be sales. 100%.
Absolutely.
That would be it.
Absolutely.
After that, you can then learn everything else. Uh,
Absolutely.
Huge takeaway. Awesome. So I'll make sure to put all of the links for folks to be able to find you into the description itself. What's the
Okay.
number one best way for folks to reach out to you?
Um, our website has everything that you need to know about us. It's www.searchstation.org. And it has everything you need to know about us. You know, telephone numbers to call, emails to send to, email addresses to send to. Um, and then we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. That's the
Awesome.
best way.
Awesome. Awesome. Yep. I'll put all those in the description. Aaron, it's been a pleasure, sir. Amazing to
Thank
have
you.
you on the podcast
Thank you,
itself.
Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Likewise. Likewise. All right, folks, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.